want to tell you why Rick Santorum won those three states, Minnesota, Missouri, and Colorado. We were very surprised by that. You know, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here comes Rick Santorum. And we looked into the numbers, and I think I've found a reason. I figured it out. Now, Rick Santorum does better with white evangelical voters, does better with conservative voters. And I want to show you what the voter turnout was in these different states. Now, one of the things that's important to note here is that Gingrich does better in the southern states. He's from the South. He appeals to the southern voters throughout his campaign. That's been his focus. So first, when you look at South Carolina, voter turnout was 17.6%, which is actually relatively high in these primaries. But Gingrich won that one because that's near his home base, okay? So that's the outlier. But when you look at the other numbers, when you look at high voter turnout states, like New Hampshire is at 24.9%, and Florida was at 12.8%, and as you're going to see, 12.8% is fairly high. This is of the people who could have voted, what percentage came out and actually voted? Well, in the high voter turnout states, Mitt Romney does better because he appeals to a broader cross-section of Republicans, a broader cross-section of voters. Now, I don't necessarily agree that he should. I think he's a total right-winger as well, but compared to Gingrich and Santorum, he seems relatively moderate. So when more people come out to vote, Romney wins. Now, when you look at the low voter turnout states, and these are amazing. Look at Iowa was at 5.4%. We had Nevada at 1.9%, Colorado at 1.8%, Minnesota at 1.2%, and Missouri at 5.7%. Who won those? Well, most of those were won by Rick Santorum. Because when it's a caucus, for example, Minnesota, Iowa, Colorado were caucuses, right? A lot less people show up because it's not just going and checking off a box. You have to go there, debate, discuss, and then take part in the process, right? So less people show up. Those are the guys who are what? More motivated, either because they're very conservative or because they're very religious. So Santorum wins that category. He wins in those states. But you see, I knew that, but then as I was looking at the overall results before I saw these voter turnout numbers, I thought, but that doesn't make sense. Missouri was a primary. Why does Santorum do so well in Missouri? Well, that's because it's a primary that was non-binding. That's why only 5.7% of the voters showed up. That's why Rick Santorum did much, much better. It was like a caucus in essence because so few people showed up to vote. And I was like, oh, I get it now. Now, if you notice, there was only one low voter turnout state that Mitt Romney did well in, and that was Nevada. Why? There, a great percentage of the electorate, over 25% of the electorate on the Republican side, were Mormons. And nearly 90% of them voted for Mitt Romney. They were motivated by their religion to show up at their caucuses, and less than 2% of the people who could vote voted in those caucuses. So when those motivated Mormons showed up in Nevada, Mitt Romney won. So now you get a sense of why Santorum won those three states. And before it seemed inexplicable that all of a sudden he came out of nowhere. But when you see the numbers, it makes a lot more sense. And so who is that to the advantage of in the long run? Well, I got to say it's to the advantage of Mitt Romney. Yes, there will be some southern states that might go to Gingrich as we head into Super Tuesday. But overall, we've got more primary states left. We've got more states where you're going to have a higher percentage of voter turnout. That is to Romney's advantage. So this Santorum rise is at least partly, I think largely, a function of the fact that these three states were caucuses and a non-binding primary. So it's not like Santorum is surging and will do well in the other states as well, if this analysis is correct. So we'll see how it plays out.